Alrighty, so we are in chapter 2, and boy, what an interesting chapter. And by the way, let me just clear it up. I made the mistake of saying the wrong King Jehoram last week. I'm so sorry about that. So the king of Judah did not take over the kingdom of Samaria, and that was my mistake. I just put it as the first line on your homework, on your paper when you get it. Sorry about that. But the thing that's interesting about this chapter, it actually is occurring 7 years after this. It's out of historical timeline. It actually occurred in the 5th year of Jehoram of Israel's reign, not right at the beginning. So it's here for a reason. Yeah. It's here for a reason. There's a reason why that it's done like that. And it's for continuity, okay, with the story of things that are happening. So what is chapter 2 about? How would you title this chapter? What happened?
Elijah is taking heaven and Elijah succeeded.
Okay, so Elijah rides the chariot.
But didn't he ride the chariot? Or
I don't
was he
know.
taken up in whirlwind?
Well, we're just gonna use it. Chariot, whirlwind.
I thought it was appropriate because his life was kind of a whirlwind.
Right.
Kind of that.
Well, it was, what was he known for? Fire.
Fire.
Fire from heaven. So fire came and got him, right? And then Elijah. What happened with Elijah? What did he do?
He picked up the mantle and took it.
Okay, but what else?
Oh, he asked for a double portion of his spirit.
And asked for a double portion. What did you think about that? They spent some time in the homework.
It was kind of the firstborn son portion, the double portion. So he would be seen as the heir, the
Okay,
successor.
so he would be the successor.
Yeah. And Elijah had him before the other prophet, so they would know that he wanted Elisha for.
Yes, I thought that was, I kind of went back and forth
Witness,
about
yeah.
the sons of the prophets a little bit. Because it never says in there, when you read through it, it never says that Elijah asked for the sons of the prophets.
And what's amazing is they all seemed to know that he was gonna go to heaven in
Yeah.
a spectacular way.
Yeah, so how do you think that happened?
He probably told them.
Do you think he told them?
I don't know. One place I looked at after I finished the homework was that one school thought is that all these places had a school of the prophet, right?
Right.
All the places he visited, so it was like he was going in.
That's what I read that, but then I read something else that had me kind of thinking. Elijah wasn't seeking them out. They sought him out. Okay. I'm just saying.
And they all say, your master's going up,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
So but I don't
know.
think that it was Elijah that told them.
Who do you think told?
I think God told them.
You think God did?
Because they are
Well, it
prophets.
seemed to be general knowledge.
Among who? Just the prophets.
Yes.
Just the prophets. Okay. So we have to ask ourselves.
But then the bullies at the end knew about the spectacular way.
Okay, I don't know if they did.
You don't think
I
they did?
don't know. I'm not gonna say that's wrong. I'm just gonna present why I think it's different.
Because I said, go up.
Yeah.
Kind of like, go up.
Okay. Well, okay.
We're
Organizing, we're not getting here. We just wanna, yeah, because here's the thing, where were those young men? And they were young adult men, most likely, they weren't little kids.
In Jericho.
Bethel.
Bethel, and it was a worship idols in that.
Okay, so what was Elijah known for? Fire coming down from heaven, right? Consuming things, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they're mocking Elijah at Bethel, where they worship idols. They're not godly men at all. They're not men who are looking for that.
Right.
So they're trying to humiliate him, right? So they're mocking Elijah. They're mocking Elijah. And who else are they mocking? God.
God, yeah.
Okay. So they weren't saying to him, oh yeah, you've gone up there, like you're riding a chariot like Elijah did, because obviously this would be news now because it's happened. It would be more in terms of.
But nobody saw it.
Well, I think the sons of the prophet saw something.
Well, they didn't see enough because they wanted to go look for him.
Okay, I don't think that I think that they were testing Elijah to see if he was really the one.
Okay.
They saw something happened, and it's not even really, Elijah, when he saw it, I don't think he was completely clear. He knew that God had taken him, and he saw the whirlwind, he saw fire, he saw chariots. I mean, he knew that he'd been taken because God had said, and Elijah had told him. But I think it's just to me, I always like to ask, why does the sons of the prophets, why does that matter to the story? Why does that matter? And why do these, I mean, we know why the 42 young men that were killed matter. We know why that matters, because and we know why the mantle matters. But what about those sons of the prophets? Why does that matter? And I think they're being used to test Elijah right off the bat. He gets a test, doesn't he?
Not only that, but if there was anybody that was thinking they were going to be next in line to be the greatest prophet in the country, then okay, this is settled now.
Right. So why would God allow that to happen to Elijah? And why would he allow this confrontation? Because obviously he clearly defines Elijah as the successor, right?
Right.
God does it. And the first thing that he did when he picked up the mantle, and there was this really great statement that really made me think about it. He said, let me see. He said, let me find it. And he said, he took the mantle that fell from him and returned. And he said, where is the Lord, the God of Elijah? So what is he asking there? That's in verse
14.
14. Thank you.
Are you with me?
He's asking, do I really have it? And so it's a really big sign of humility. He's really showing, right? So he's showing that it's a statement of humility to meet the needs that's going to come his way. He wasn't really sure if he was up to the task until he took that mantle and hit the water with it and it parted. And that should have been a big enough sign to the sons of the prophets, right? They saw that.
Yeah.
They did see that. And they challenged him instead. They challenged his ministry and his calling. Exactly for what you're saying, Martha. Maybe they thought somebody else should have been the next guy. I just think it's a really interesting, he picks up the mantle. He's the successor of Elijah. Elijah is very humble, right? And he's doubting himself. I mean, just think about how hard that will be.
You'd be scared.
This is a big deal. And asking for the double portion. Why was he asking for the double portion? He had a lot to deal with, right? It'd be a very difficult ministry to take on. I mean, it'd be like, who replaces Billy Graham? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right? I mean, who's gonna replace that guy? I mean, his son Franklin did, but you know what I'm trying to say? He does a great job, but what I'm
Yeah, he
saying
is.
is that when you have a very powerful person to walk in there and see that kind of a difference. Something else I looked at about the differences between Elijah and Elijah. Elijah dealt with kind of more the state affairs, the kings and their decisions. You saw more of that. But Elijah was considered the forerunner of John the Baptist. Okay? Elijah dealt with the common people and was considered a forerunner of Christ. So I just think that'll be in the notes, but the ability to withstand the evil kingdom, to have the portion of the eldest who be the right to succeed, which is what you talked about, to be able to meet the needs, and you know, why wouldn't Elijah be questioning? After all, Elijah was taken to heaven. That'd be a pretty big act of
Yeah.
Allah,
Yeah,
right?
because that wasn't done. I mean, that'd be the.
I mean, it's like, you know,
Yeah,
this, yes,
One of the things I see is that the prophet said the spirit of Elijah rests on Elijah.
yeah, Elijah,
And so instead of the spirit of the Lord.
right,
So,
Yeah.
so they're just saying, well,
Right.
Elijah's passing this down to you, not the Lord
Right.
passing it down to
right,
you.
right. And I would say, what is Jericho? What was the city of Jericho? What was the problem with Jericho? It was not to be rebuilt. Think about where these things are. There's Bethel, there's Jericho, and where was the other place? There was another place that they came from, I guess from the Jordan, right?
Yeah.
And so they go and they look, so the sons of the prophets are testing Elijah. Even though they see him doing the same kind of things. Right? And they knew that he had been taken up because they were looking for him.
yeah,
They wouldn't have looked for him if they didn't know that he'd been taken up, right? So they're testing him. And what is it that Elijah says? You know, I mean, this is like, how quickly does this happen after Elijah is taken up? How quickly does this happen?
Right away, he goes
Yeah.
back to the river and
Right away.
crosses over and
Right,
bam, here we go.
right,
But he first tells them, you shall not sin.
right. And what they do?
And then they urged him until he was ashamed.
Right,
Like, you know, your master could be laying out there bleeding
Yeah,
something, and you're just gonna sit here down and do nothing, you know?
right, right. Do we do this kind of thing?
Sure we do.
uh-huh.
So this is how his ministry starts. To me, it makes a lot of sense why he needed to go before. And what wisdom that he had to actually respond and ask for that. So the men, he chastised them and says, didn't I tell you, don't go? So the sons of the prophets tested Elijah. They sought. What do you think they sought Elijah's body? What would that do to Elijah?
Nullify him as a prophet.
Make him a liar. I don't think these guys had a completely proper attitude. Let me ask you. Has happened to me, so I know it's something that I would, I've done. You got this ministry. Somebody comes in and they get the shiny spot that you used to have. And it's like so irritating. Because now everybody used to talk about you, but now everybody talks about that person. Did you see what they did? They're just so good at it. What is it that normally raises its ugly head in situations like that?
Jealousy.
That's what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
Jealous. Why didn't I get that? What's so wrong with me? I'm a worship leader, and let me tell you, if you don't
like
think.
the dude, he's a newbie, make him out of the field.
Exactly. We've been training all this
Yeah.
time. And if you think about it, I mean, I have experienced this. Other people have been invited to do the lead song instead of me. I'm like, well, why is that? Well, what's wrong with me? Why don't they want me to do it? Right?
Human nature.
It's our nature to make ourselves first and not easily accept something that God might be doing in that person. We need to rejoice with those who have been given these amazing opportunities. So we see another happening, 19 through 22. What happens in these verses?
The water was in Jericho was soured.
And what was it made?
What was the point?
What was it made into? Pure.
It was purified.
Mhm. Bad water made pure. Now, let me ask you. When you have impure water, what do you get? Sick. Bad water
Yeah, I could show you.
makes you sick. What does pure water do?
It's healthy.
Okay,
Healed.
it is, I lost my little spot. It is life. He is giving them a message. What's the message you think he's giving them?
He's the one.
What they've been telling them all the time, turn back to God.
Why do prophets do the things that they do? What's the root? What's the root? What's the purpose of a prophet? Think about Hebrews, says it took
Well, it
Hebrews.
demonstrates the power of God.
So God spoke to the people through the prophets.
Yes.
The priests spoke to God through the temple, through sacrifice. But God is speaking to the people through the prophets. And the message is always going to be, you need to turn back to God. So, he says, I purified these waters that shall not be from their death or unfruitfulness any longer. No more death, no more unfruitfulness. It's an incredible picture. I wish we had more time. Then we get to 23 through 25. And we got the bad boys
Yeah.
of what? Bethel, right?
Yes.
All righty. Bad boys of Bethel. I tell you what. So we know these guys, they're in Bethel, and this is golden calf worship. And they start mocking. Now he just talked to people, right?
Mhm.
About the difference between life and death. That's basically what he's doing. You need to turn back to God. And then he runs into these guys, he's just walking down the road, right? Minding his own business. He wasn't looking for a fight. He was just trying to serve the Lord. And what happens?
Came out of the city and mocked him and said to him, go up, you bald head, go up. You bald head.
They sought out Elijah in order to mock him. Why would they do that?
You don't want him
not
coming
doing
into
anything.
town.
Huh?
You don't want him coming into town, he might bring down fire from heaven.
Might bring down fire from heaven. You're exactly right. Don't mess up with our deal, man. We like what we're doing. Don't you come in here and tell us all this stuff about God. That's exactly what they are doing. They are seeking him out in order to stop his message. And what happened?
He cursed them.
He cursed him. Did he have a right to curse him?
Yes.
Why? Why is it okay to curse those boys? Those young men?
Because they were Satanists.
Mhm.
Well, they were definitely idolatrous worshipers.
Well, they
Well, what else is that? I mean, that's Satan, isn't it?
And he did it in the name of the Lord.
Okay. How would we describe this? We do what? We must always do what?
Go to the Lord.
Uphold the name of the Lord. Think about what is going on here. What does this tell all these other pagan worshipers?
Don't mess with him.
Don't mess with him.
Yeah.
What does he have that we don't have? He's got power.
Mhm.
So a lot of times when we see something like this, you know, a lot of people would read this and just think, what a jerk. You know, a bunch of kids are just picking on him.
Sounds like a game.
Yeah, but that's not what's happening here. They are mocking God. And he says, you're not gonna mock God. You're not gonna do it. I was teaching a class many years ago. I mean, it had to be at least 25 years ago. And I made this off-color remark. I don't even really know what I said. I just said something kind of off the cuff because I've been prone to do things like that. And this woman stood up and just chewed me out. She said, you're mocking God. I was like, what? I was totally shocked. And it embarrassed me, but I really to this day couldn't even tell you what I did, but whatever I said, it offended her. And later on, you know, she came up to me, she said, I didn't mean, I said, look, what I have to learn is that I need to be careful what I say, whether I recognize it as being acceptable or unacceptable. I can say things that offend people. Now, this is not what they're doing. I wasn't intentionally trying to mock God. But they're seeking him out in order to do that.
They don't want him to go in their towns.
But he didn't call the bears.
No,
he
He
just,
cursed them and let God take care of the deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Let God,
what's this?
Thank God actually motivated the bears to do it somehow or another.
Yeah.
Put it in their little pea brains to go out.
Yeah,
I wonder
yeah.
what the significance of there being two female bears is.
Maybe they're more
I think
aggressive
they're
than
more
the males.
aggressive.
Maybe they're more aggressive.
Yeah,
Well, maybe, I don't know how to say this. You know that verse about vengeance is God's?
mhm,
Just say, God, take care of that, and just let him take care of that,
right,
any way he wants to.
that's right. That's Romans 12. Vengeance is mine, thus saith the Lord. So, yeah, it is letting God take care of those people, those enemies, those people who are mocking him. But why was it important for Elijah to say that to them?
I guess so they would know that God is the powerful one.
Mhm.
That they are offending God. That, and he's telling them, you know, look, you are cursed because you're doing that. They're already dead. You know what? Technically, they're already dead
Yeah.
Mhm.
because they're not saved. Not that we don't want to be saved, but you know what I'm saying? It's,
But it's,
And it doesn't say it killed them, it says it tore them up, you know, they might have just been mauled.
I think some of them died.
Probably.
yeah, but he didn't do all of them, only 42.
Yeah.
So that to me means
Well, the rest of them-
that he
Okay.
wanted witnesses
Absolutely.
Yeah, he
To
wanted people
say-
to go back and
and
tell
say,
them what
look what
Right,
Elijah's
Right.
God did.
Yeah.
right. But
He
it-
called us out for mocking God, and now we're,
And what else we wanna say is we cannot do anything better than God.
No.
If he lets it happen that way, that's what he wants.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if we get in the middle of it, we're actually messing up that whole
So
deal,
it's a plan.
right? Okay, so let's go to chapter 3. Okay, so Jehoram, the son of Ahab, became king over Israel at Samaria in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and reigned 12 years. He did evil. Doggone it, that boy. This is the tale of 3 kings. What is going on here? So what did we learn about, I love this little, quote here. It's Israel, Judah, and Edom that go to war with Moab. And I looked up, one of the commentators that I really liked. What he said about this chapter is a little reform is not regeneration. He might have reformed, but he was not saved, right? So, I would translate that into, I'm really, really sorry, I won't do it again. I'll just pick something else to do. All right,
I won't do that, but I might do this.
I'm gonna do this instead, right? So, Jehoram, what did he do?
He did evil on this side of the Lord.
Okay, what did he do? He continued what?
He clung to the sins of Jeroboam. Made Israel sin.
Because he kept the worship of the calves. And that's one of the other reasons why I think the bad boys is important, because their king, they're only following what their king did. And this is something that we're actually seeing today in our political system. We see groups taking sides and they're saying, well, he's the one in charge and he says it's okay, so why isn't this okay? Right? That's what they're doing. So what did Jehoshaphat do?
He joins
He joins in.
with a group.
Do we see any criticism from God about this? There really isn't any.
Mm-mm.
God doesn't call him out and say anything bad to him about this. Not until the very, very end of the chapter.
Well, there was kind of a demonstration because they went out there for 7 days, no water for the army, they made it, nor the cattle, and they followed them, so there was no blessing from God on what they were doing.
Wow.
Not yet, anyway. This is all on their own. They haven't consulted God. We're doing this under our own power, which is
No,
pretty much what we do.
right? Bad, bad, bad. I was like, dang, dude, come on. So they went the correct course. It's actually said, so Jehoram is the one. I kind of had to really look at that to make sure I understood who was saying what, right? So Jehoram is the one that said, we're gonna go up this way. And that
Yeah.
was the right way to go. Okay, that was correct. But he didn't even think about water, right? No plan for water. So when this happens, what is it that Jehoram says? Verse 10. Lance, call Penny. Oh, she wants to say hi to everybody.
She's a sweet dog.
Yeah, she's fine.
All right.
We'll ignore her.
Okay. So what is it that he does? What does he say? What is, God is sending us to our death. It's all God's fault. That's what he's saying. God's fault. It's his fault. And what does Jehoshaphat do?
He's looking for a prophet.
Jehoshaphat
Says,
Where-
maybe we should ask God.
is
After,
the prophet of God. Now, I want to ask you something.
we should have done that. first.
Whether it was by design or incidental, I cannot tell. I don't know if Jehoshaphat was just allowing this to happen, if God had said something to him about it. I don't know, because he doesn't get criticized, okay? As a matter of fact, when Elijah comes, what does Elijah say about King Jehoshaphat? I have very high regard for this guy. If it wasn't for him, I was gonna let you fry, basically.
What
So-
have I got to do with you?
Yeah, what have I got to do with you? Yeah, okay, bring some music. I can see it. Get a minstrel over here. I have my opinions as to why you might have done that, but we see that Jehoshaphat is asking the right question.
Mhm.
What is that message here? At the right time, he asked the right question. Sometimes we need to wait until the opportunity presents itself, rather than to be the bull in the china closet and just run over there and try to fix it. Jehoshaphat is not an idiot. They're wandering around all these
I
days.
can't understand why he didn't ask this first. Okay, before he says, okay, I'm gonna just throw in with you
I
guys.
don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't have done that, thinking that, but the point is, we gotta look at the context of what's being said,
Right,
and
well,
he's
he
not
first,
being criticized.
he first let the Jehoram's plan fail,
Right. Right.
so it's a less object lesson, I guess.
Timing is in God's hands. When we are in a situation, are we trying to force it? Or is God setting the timing for a bigger purpose? Here's a guy who has made some reform. Not a ton of reform, but he's not sacrificing children to Baal anymore, okay? That's a big step in the right direction. He has made reforms, he has not made true heart changes. But he is calling on the God of Judah.
Mhm.
And so maybe, I don't know, I am making a supposition here for which I have no foundation, okay? It could just be that Jehoshaphat had the wisdom to wait for the right opportunity to say, maybe we need a prophet. And the first time they've been around the camp with this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so, what is his response?
Elisha's here.
Mhm.
Elijah. It wasn't even the king. He didn't even know.
But he's
But
not giving Elisha a whole lot of credit either. He used to pour water on the hands of Elijah, who was the great.
yeah, right, exactly. And that's the servant saying it. That's not even the king.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So the king doesn't even really know who Elijah is because he ain't looking for him.
Yeah.
And he says, what does Jehoshaphat say? Does Jehoshaphat know who Elijah is? What does he say in verse 12?
the word of the Lord is with him.
He knew that this man was a man of God. So Jehoshaphat says, this is a man of God. I just think it's very interesting. I don't know that God just, I don't know, I just think, it's just interesting. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom all went down to him.
3 kings.
The 3 kings, the tale of the 3 kings. And first, right off the bat, Elijah's like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with you, right? Go seek the God of your parent. I don't want anything to do with you. That's a pretty harsh statement,
Mhm.
right? So, what does Jehoram say? He says, this is what the king of Israel says. The Lord has called us together to give us into the hand of Moab. It's the second time he said that.
Mhm.
It's all God's fault. Because this is when I started to realize, why did Jehoram ask Jehoshaphat? Because he thought if he had a godly man, then he would win.
That God would give them victory.
God would give him victory.
So Jehoram asked Jehoshaphat,
Right.
because he knew he was God. So for the power that Jehoshaphat might could get into. So why, never mind, that I don't understand that.
Well, of course not, because it doesn't make sense. So he says in verse 14, Elijah says, as the Lord of hosts lives before whom I stand, were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, I would not look at you or see you. But I think that Jehoram is revealing what he thinks. Look, he's already gotten rid of the sacrifice, the Baal worship.
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, now he still won't get rid of the sacrifice of the priesthood to the golden calf. Because in his mind, where'd the golden calf come from? From Aaron. Isn't that okay?
Well, no, it wasn't.
Of course it wasn't okay, but I'm just saying that he's got very screwed up thinking and he just wants to win because he doesn't have the confidence to believe he can win without Jehoshaphat, or he wouldn't have asked it. So he says, bring a minstrel. And I just thought that was really funny. It's not
Maybe
typical.
he was like Saul, the music soothed him and he was able
Well,
to,
that's what one guy said. Yeah.
able to enter the presence of God, and with calm.
Yeah. I think he did it for the drama.
That and the fact that I'm done with you, somebody bring some music.
I think he did it for the drama and for a distraction from this irritating king. I think he did it, it's dramatic. We're gonna have music, I'm gonna do this big show. And that's kind of how it felt to me. And
Well, it said the hand of the Lord came upon you
yeah,
when the visitor passed through.
yeah, which is okay. Doesn't mean that he isn't doing something to be distracting. I'm not, it doesn't, because he is the man of God, he is there, right?
But here's 3 kings standing in front of him. They came to him, normally kings send for people. You can't
Correct.
stand before me.
Correct.
And he's already told Jehoram, if it wasn't for Jehoshaphat, I wouldn't have anything to do with you at all. You go seek your idols and the
Right.
prophets and all
Right,
that.
right.
And now bring me some music.
Dramatic.
Yeah.
It's a dramatic picture of like, oh yeah, come on.
Very
So,
dramatic.
yeah.
Who's got the upper hand here?
Who's got the upper hand here? You are exactly right. That is exactly what he's doing. He's saying, you're coming to me and I'm gonna take advantage of it. Oh, gosh. Let me just, I know, but let me just. Excuse me.
She does quick, girl.
I know. But come on, come
Go
on.
around the table to get everybody's love.
Yeah.
I'm here, give me some love.
Smart talking to her.
I think you were giving her what she wanted.
I don't
I'm allergic to dogs.
Oh, Andrew.
Oh.
You're allergic to dogs?
It's not a high allergy, but when they live here and if I touch them on the hands, I think that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't, we live with animals all the time.
Yeah,
We
me
do,
too.
yeah.
I have a dog.
All right, so let's,
But we don't anymore.
All we got is cats now.
so what is so he is a man of God. He is doing a little bit of a dramatic act here, he's letting them know, I'm in charge, you came to me, I'm doing it this way. Right?
This
And
is Elisha you're talking.
This is Elijah,
Mhm.
and I think that is perfectly acceptable,
Mhm.
because what is it doing? It is confronting this unsaved man with the fact
I
of
just love the
God,
picture.
yes.
I just love the picture. Y'all just sit there and I'll let you know what I heard.
I think that is perfect. I mean, he's a lot more flamboyant in some ways than Elijah. So what happens? And I'm just, and I wrote this note. Why did the king of Israel ask the king of Judah to join the fight? Maybe he was looking for a guaranteed win. And Jehoram is angry because his lucky rabbit's foot wasn't working for him, right? He's got to go to this prophet. And so 16 through 20, what does it tell him is going to happen? Verses 16 through 20. What happens?
Make this valley full of trenches.
Okay, so
Here's
he
the
tells
plan.
him, he gives a plan. The plan is trench the valley. Which has to do with water flow, right?
Mhm.
And then what else?
That's all they have to do?
Right, trench the valley. And then he says, you shall not see wind or rain, but the valley's going to be filled with water. And you're going to drink, both you and your cattle and your beasts. And this is not hard for God. No rain, no dew. I can't even imagine that dew would do that. Just water. And enough to take care of their armies, their animals, and them. And this is not hard
God.
for God. Nothing is impossible with God. So then what happens? What do the Moabites see?
They're going to deliver. He will also give the Moabites into your hands.
Yes, yes. You're gonna win. You're gonna win. But what is it that the Moabites see? They're looking at this water, and what do they see? This is 21 through 25.
So it's blood.
Mhm.
So the sun somehow was shining on the water. They'd never seen the valley full of water like this. This was a totally new thing. And so it's kind of like an optical illusion that it looks like blood. So what do?
I thought it was blood.
And so what do?
They thought those armies killed each other.
And so they run down there to take
They're
all
gonna
the
go
spoils.
plunder.
They're gonna go plunder. So, this is a very interesting little statement. It's not hard for God, you're gonna win. And then 21 through 25, Moab is defeated. Now, they see that, they run down there, they get wiped out. What did the three kings do after this? 26 and
They went
27.
home. That was the oddest thing. After the king
Well, 26 and 27.
of Moab sacrificed his son, and they just went home.
Well, why did that happen? There came what? The last part of the last sentence in verse 27. There came great wrath against Israel, and they depart from him and return to their own land. What do you think is going on? Why would God be angry about that?
Well, he didn't let them get to the king of Moab.
He didn't, did he?
Right.
So the king of Moab, he takes 700 men, he goes against Edom because they're the weakest link. He's trying to save himself. That's a sign of incredible desperation. Where does it say in this story that God wanted to destroy Moab?
Nowhere, because they'll get victory over them.
They had victory over them because Moab was still going to be serving Israel, correct? So God's allowing the judgment of them by losing. But what is he not allowing?
The line would be completely wiped out.
Absolute abject desperation of this guy. And he sacrificed his son at sunset, end of the day, on top of the wall, in front of everybody, because he thought this was what was going to save him. What is it that God is allowing this whole situation to happen? Think about how this is going. Jehoram is using Jehoshaphat as his lucky rabbit's foot to win something because he's mad, right? But God sends the prophet to speak to him and show him that I'm God and this isn't hard for me to do. And I will make sure that you win because I'm going to allow that. But then what does Jehoram do? When he gets to, that's the capital city of the Moabites, he gets to the capital. They are absolutely, they did all the things. They seeded the ground, they made it so they couldn't be prosperous and all this kind of stuff. That's a pretty harsh judgment by itself. But he pushed this king to the point that he sacrificed his own son in order to stop what was going on. And the reason God's mad, because that is not how he deals with people who are lost, is it? To bring them to the place of utter destruction? Because that's what he's doing. And it made God angry at Israel. I am blessing you. I am giving you the victory.
Well,
And you went
somewhere
too
did it
far.
tell them that they couldn't, that they weren't gonna cut down fruit trees? That wasn't a one.
You could not cut down fruit trees. That was the only thing that Leviticus and the other verses talked about,
Yeah.
because you did not want to make it impossible for people to feed themselves. But you didn't want to have wood that they could use to make weaponry. That was the deal. So he wanted to cripple Moab so that they would come underneath, right? Any country that served God, what was his purpose for that country? Prosper them. To prosper his people, and for his people to be what? Salt and light to the world. How is this being salt and light to the world? It ain't.
It's not. They even block up all their springs and.
It's pretty harsh. It's beyond the pale. Yeah. He dealt with Moab harshly. He dealt with Judah kindly, but he was angry at Israel for what they did. And this is so horrifying to these soldiers. When they saw that, that's what they stopped. It did. And here's the thing. Do you think the king of Moab believed that the God of Israel or the God of Judah is going to stop the battle?
No.
He thought the sacrifice of his son did. So they went so far that they destroyed the opportunity that this king had to bow the knee and say, the God of Israel is the great God. And they missed it. Don't get ahead of God. Pretty sobering. All right, so time to have left. This is just like, this is what happens with these dang. This should have been a longer class. That's all I can say. It should have been longer. Chapter 4. What happens here? Now we for sure know that Elijah is over the prophets, right? Because we see the wife of this prophet, and somebody said that, I read some commentary, I didn't put it in here because I didn't have time to track it to see if it's accurate, but they thought that Obadiah's wife, that Obadiah had died, and this was his wife. But it doesn't sound right to me because she had young sons. I just think he was a prophet, right? Because she doesn't talk about older sons, she says my 2 children. And that would be young, to be slaves. So that's why I didn't put that. But 2 women, talking about 2 women, 2 meals. These are the 2 things that happen. Verses 1 through 7. What is the story about this? What do we know about this woman?
Her husband died,
Okay, she's a widow.
and the creditors are taking her 2 children to be sold as slaves.
Poverty. Desperate.
That's a story.
Right? A little bit of line here. I'd like to divide these up as much as I can, because this is gonna take some room. I've got it. So, what's happening here? She goes to him, and what does he say? Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord, and the creditors come to take my children. What shall I do for you? Tell me. So Elijah asks 2 questions. One, what can I do for you? And he's saying that very kindly. And 2, what do you have? So what happens here?
She only has a jar of oil.
And they said technically it'd be like a little flask, maybe the size of this little bottle here. It'd be a flask of anointing oil. Okay, it wouldn't be big. What does he tell her to do?
He told her to go borrow vessels
Big ones.
from
Go
all your neighbors, except and they want even empty vessels. Do not get a few.
from your neighbors a lot of empty vessels. And what happens? First of all, by the time it gets to this point, there's been some time that's gone by, right? So this woman's been trying to make it on her own until she's responded to this point, she's got to do something. So does that mean that she didn't have faith or she didn't trust the Lord?
No,
No, she's
she's
just,
about to lose her son.
She's just about to lose her son.
I've done everything I know to do.
Mhm.
Done everything I know to do. And so the thing is that having done it all, seek God.
and she says your maidservant.
She says, he tells her to go borrow, even empty vessels, don't get a few. You go in and shut the door behind you and your sons and pour into all these vessels, and you shall satisfy what is full. So she goes in there with her sons, they're bringing the vessels to her, and she poured from that one little vessel. When the vessels were full, she said to her son, bring me another vessel. And he said to her, there's not one vessel more, and the oil stopped. And she came and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debt and you and your sons can live on the rest. What do we learn here? What happened here?
God took care of her.
Well, she acted on faith.
Right.
She got the vessels. And the oil just kept pouring from her small bottle.
And if she'd continued to get vessels,
No,
it would have, if she had continued, would it have continued to bring oil?
if she'd had more vessels,
If
yes.
she had more vessels. So she had as many vessels as she could have. And the oil stopped. And was it enough?
Yes.
Yes.
So God supplied all that she needed with what she had. I think that's God's asking, what do I need? He's asking, what are my abilities? He's going to supply above what I'm able to imagine if I trust him. He'll take what's been given to me to sustain me in every and all circumstances I face. And what is the picture of this oil? What is it a picture of? What does the oil represent?
It's a anointing oil, yeah.
What it is representing? She had a desire to preserve her family. She only had that vessel. She came with an expectation that God would hear her, or she wouldn't have gone. There's nobody else to go to but the Lord. Because it was her desire to follow through, God saved her. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Is our heart perfect?
Is our heart?
Is our heart perfect? No. Our knowledge and understanding of God is in her. But he is perfect and he fills in what we cannot imagine. I just think that's important. All right, second story, verses really 8 through 37. I think they're trying to say there are 5. I just kind of 4 really. 8 through 37. Okay, this is long. We're not going to get it all in there. But I want to tell you that there's a difference. So this woman is poverty. This woman is what?
She's married, she's a prominent woman.
Yeah, she's rich and she is married. And she is very observant. She was paying attention. She is a godly woman also. This is the thing that really struck me. This is a godly woman. She's godly. This woman is godly. So we're not talking about people who don't know. See, the last chapter is about an ungodly man that God is speaking to with these incredible miracles. He's still doing the same miracle, whether you're a believer or you're not a believer, but it's how we respond to it that matters. That's what's happening here. So he says, sometimes we don't even know how to acknowledge or speak what we want, but we have this deep thing that we want. Sometimes it takes certain circumstances for us to see that this is really what the core issue is. And I've had epiphanies like that, haven't you? Praying about something, you keep beating around the bush, trying to figure it out, trying to be good and do all this stuff. All of a sudden God just says, that is your problem. You're missing it. You're doing all this other stuff, but what's really going on with you is this thing, and I'm going to deal with it. Sometimes, in this case, he blessed her because she was godly, she was observant, she was a servant, she had a big servant heart, She did not ask for anything, never asked for anything from that prophet. So what does Elijah do? He says, what can I do for this woman? And his servant says, well, she didn't have any kids. And her husband's old. And so he goes to her and gives her a promise. You will have a child. I'm not gonna get to the 2 meals, okay? You just have to get that in there. I'm just gonna have to do this. What does she say?
Don't kid me.
Hey, man, this better not be a joke, right? Imagine, she has never spoken this. She's told this guy about her deep desire to have a child. The shame of not having children in that culture was huge. And he comes to her and he says, you're gonna have a child next year. I'm sure she was like,
Don't lie to me.
No, I'm not.
wow. So she had given up because she saw no possible opportunity to have a child. Her husband's old. I don't know how much younger she was than him, but she didn't see this as an option. This isn't good enough. So she's not even thinking about it. She's not trapped by her wealth. She's very generous. She's very humble. She has great faith. Unlike, people, money can really trap you. When she hears it, she's got a very humble response. Why would God give this to me now? What's going on here? It gets to be about, the commentators said he was probably around 6 or 7 years old when he had sunstroke. That's what they said it's very, very common in that culture to have sunstroke. Kids would dehydrate and not enough water, and the boy's not doing well. I guess he passed out or something, and the dad's in the field, he just takes it to the mom. Mom, there's something wrong with it. Take it. And so what happens from there? If you had to tell this story, what did the woman do? Did she, when her son dies, what did she do?
She put him on the bed that was prepared for Elisha and said, I'm gonna go get him.
Right.
She didn't send somebody else for him, she went herself.
Son dies. She does not tell her husband that he's dead. She just says everything's okay. That's all she kept saying. Everything's good. Does not tell her husband. She puts him on the bed, on Elijah's bed. She's praying. You know that she's doing
Yeah,
that,
every minute.
right? And then she shuts the door behind her, right?
Mhm.
And she gets a donkey, and it says in the map that it's about 17 miles away to where Elijah was. So she goes over there. She's not telling her husband. She doesn't tell the servant of Elijah that her son is dead.
She didn't tell anybody.
No, she's kept saying everything's okay. Now, you know anybody like that? You just think they're crazy. They're praying for something. God's gonna do it. God's gonna do it. I'm like, oh, really? You think he's gonna do it? Really? Doesn't look like it. But what is the basis of this? She never asked for the son. She never did. She wasn't looking for that. God answers this deep rooted, secret, silent wish. And then the child dies. And her response to that is what?
She has faith that he will.
What does she say to Elijah? Did I ask for a son from the Lord?
Yeah.
Did I ask for that? Did I not say, do not deceive me? What is she saying there? You said this child is from God. Why did you lie to me? She wasn't looking for anything that she got, but she got this child. So what does he do? What does Elijah do? He hands his to his servant and tells his servant, hurry up and get going, get back over there quickly. And then he and the woman get on the donkey, I guess, and head back with the woman. And so they get to the house, the servant puts the staff on the child. I'm sure that, and by the way, the reason I don't think she told the husband was because he's like, why are you going to see the priest? It's not sacrifice time. He didn't say to her, what happened to our son? Or is there something wrong? He's like, well, this isn't the right time to be running over there. We're busy, we're doing stuff. Servant puts the staff on the child, what happens? No change.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing happens. Now Elijah gets there. What's the first thing he did?
He lay down on the child.
Well, before
Prayed
that,
to the Lord.
he prayed.
Prayed, yes.
He prayed to the Lord. What do you think he said? God, you told me that this woman was going to have this child. She's been faithful. She's a good servant. She has faith in you. And now this child is dead?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a conversation like that. Do you think that this would have been distressing to Elijah as the prophet to see this prophecy come to fruition? This woman that he cares about
Yes.
and loves is now suffering because of the death of this child that he told her she was going to have? There's a lot on the line for him. And you think that would challenge his own walk with God? Don't let my problems deceive me about what God's doing. Don't let my problems trick me into thinking God's not doing something. Because I would think for Elijah, this would be a big deal. He prayed. He laid on the child. He got warm. And then he walked back and forth. What's he doing? He's praying. He's praying. He prayed to the Lord. He laid on the child. He prayed again. And then what happened?
The lad sneezed 7 times.
Well, he did something really interesting, didn't he?
Went up,
Face to
stretched
face,
himself
eye to
on
eye,
him.
right?
Yeah.
Breathed on him.
And
Yeah, yeah. Right? And then the boy sneezed 7 times. I have no idea why.
he was completely healed.
Right? And then what happens?
He opened his eyes. The boy
He opened his eyes, and what did she do? He returned the boy to his mother. I don't have time for the last two, but y'all can read them. The notes on that. What is the takeaway? I wrote some things. We must always uphold the name of the Lord. Let God take care of your enemies. We cannot do anything better than God. Timing is in God's hands. Nothing is impossible with him. Don't get ahead of him. Having done it all, seek God. Don't let my problems deceive me.
To me, that's the biggest,
Mhm.
the problem, we mistake problems for God forgiving about us.
Right, right, right. Yeah, deception is God doesn't care. Or he breaks promises. What other deceptions are there?
Well, we
He
think
doesn't
that we can take care of it
He
ourselves.
doesn't hear me. I can do it.
That's the one.
I can do it. I can take care of it myself. Anything else? God can't possibly want that person to be saved.
Hmm.
They're such a jerk.
We just finished Jonah. We went to great lengths not to have to go to Nineveh because he did not want them saved.
Do we get that? I mean, I have to say,
That person is my sworn enemy. I don't like them, you know, and they're mean to me or whatever. And why would I pray that God would save them?
I am going through something like that with a situation that's kind of come up in my husband's family, and I'm really mad at somebody. And I have to say to myself, okay, Kathy, you write this little Bible study here. What are you doing? God wants them saved. He wants them delivered. He wants to change us. He wants us to have faith like these two women had. Because they looked at, one of them wasn't even asking for God to do anything. She was content in her life. See, I want to ask you guys, why don't we ask God for more? Is it because
We don't feel like we deserve it.
we
Probably.
deserve it? We're pretty content.
Yeah. We've got much.
And we only respond when things are really bad. I mean, that's the thing, I kind of think about that, like, why do things have to get so bad? Lance and I, for a while, were really praying for the president every day, whoever the president was. We'd get in the morning, we'd pray together, and we'd pray for whatever the president, whoever. And we just got so disillusioned about the stuff that was going on, we just stopped praying. And I'm like, why did I stop doing that? Because I'm letting my feelings about a situation influence who I pray for, how I pray, why I pray. But it says to me that God's the one who's going to take care of it. My job is to keep praying for them. And to not just assume that because it's not working out my way.
Or in my timing.
Or in my timing, don't get ahead of him.
I want this to happen. I know what's happening now.
I want it to happen yesterday.
I want to know why it didn't happen yesterday.
Mhm.
As if God would answer.
Yeah. Well, if that voice is coming through, you know, we're gonna have to be a little worried, okay? So, I love this study, you'll get the notes from the last two events. But, this is a great study, and I wish we had, if, I would have divided the study up, chapter 2 and 3, and then chapter 4 would be a separate study, there's so much in it, and it just can't. You know, maybe that's the wisdom of the Lord to keep me from being, you know, too crazy about stuff that I'm doing, because Lord have mercy, the more time I have to make notes, the more notes I'm gonna make. So,
Sounds like somebody's at least trying to take Fridays off.
Try. Yes, I am, but, well, not every Friday, every other Friday.
No.
Every other Friday and every other Saturday, I'm trying to take off. And y'all, I really do have a prayer request because I am playing music this weekend at a leadership camp. I'm leaving Friday afternoon, coming back Sunday, and somewhere in the middle of all that, I've got to get next week's lesson done. I can do it, I can do it. Okay.
So you are not taking this coming
This
Friday
is,
off?
this has been a huge, I'm working part of the day and then I'm moving. I just gotta leave earlier than when I thought I could leave because it's a 2-hour drive. So, yeah. I really thought about, I can't cancel it because I'm playing music.
If only I could just.
I would have,
Decline myself.
if I would have if I wasn't playing, but I can't do that. Can't do that. It's too late. So y'all just pray for me that I get everything done. I'm gonna work on it Wednesday. I'll be at the prison at 8 o'clock tonight and tomorrow night. Then Wednesday afternoon, I'm blocked off, so I'm gonna work on the class and then I'll get it done. I'll get it done. Let's pray. Father, just thank you so much for your word, that you continue to remind us that we are not really in charge of all the things we think we are. We come up with plans and ideas and ways to fix things, and this is a good idea, let's do that. But so often, Lord, we don't ask you, is this your will? Is this what you want me to do? Father, I trust you that you always meet us exactly where we are. You give us what we need. And if we would just stop and ask you, what would you have for me today? I think, Lord, you're just waiting for that. You're waiting for us to just talk to you and not treat you like the concierge at the hotel. Father, I just ask for a deeper and more intimate relationship with you, to know you in a much more personal way so that you are honored, that other people see you in me. I thank you, Father, and I praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.